Hey guys, how you doing? Dean and Frank here again. And man, have we got an awesome show today? It's probably
Yes.
I've been waiting for this one for a couple of reasons. The first of which, what we're going to talk about today, end of year giving strategy, focusing on the end of year giving. Frank's he's pulled some awesome stats that are going to blow your mind. But this is actually a phenomenal opportunity to grow giving.
Yeah.
And you know, at Tithely, that's our whole passion. We want to see churches with increased budgets so they can fulfill the mission, preach the gospel, expand the kingdom, build new buildings, reach more people, help the poor, like all the cool things that a church can do with more finances, right, Frank? This is the month.
Yeah. December is, I guess we're almost in December. I don't know about you, but, the house has been decorated for a couple of weeks for Christmas and
I'm not as organized as you, mate, but I have got
it's all the wife. It's
brothers.
all the wife. She's amazing.
Well, the Christmas brothers are coming to my house to put up lights, and I'm going all in this year.
Amazing.
Epic Christmas lights in Los Angeles.
The parties are starting, right? I've had a couple, right? We have our West Coast Tithely party coming up soon.
Coming up next week. Yeah.
So it is the season, right? And certainly when it comes to, obviously we're celebrating for a very good reason. But people like to give in December, like Thanksgiving into December. It's a time of year when people are sort of thinking about gratitude, and they're doing extra to give in lots of ways, right? Whether it's presents or parties or taking care of their family or other things like giving to their church, giving to their favorite charities, things like that. So
absolutely,
December's a big month for giving.
It sure is. So we're going to dive into the weeds here in a moment. One of the things I think pastors should be thinking about is this time of the year is busy.
Yep.
And sometimes as a pastor, you can think to yourself, oh my gosh, everyone's so busy. People are spending all this money on gifts. Is this the right time of the year to ask people to give when they're already spending a lot of money on other stuff? And my answer is 100% yes. And here's my reasoning. The first reason that you should be talking about money in December is that every single other charity on the planet is doing it.
Yeah, 100%.
And so, right, so starting from Giving Tuesday, which was like this week, I got probably, not exaggerating, probably 40 solicitations of different groups, right? From the hospital, like the doctor I go to, Cedars-Sinai here in LA. Yeah. They're right, like everyone was raising money on Giving Tuesday.
Yeah, it kicks off. It's like Giving Tuesday.
It's like the kickoff season.
It's the kickoff for the sort of charitable nonprofit giving time, right? So they use that day almost as this big kickoff.
Yeah,
and churches are kind of tuning into it. Yeah, they're
kind of tuning in.
Churches are kind of, but it's not really a thing, right?
Not yet. But here's the thing: from here till the end of December, organizations are going to be going after people's money. And there's a big reason. It's the elephant in the room, and we know what it is, and we thank Jesus for it, is that there is a beautiful tax-deductible thing that happens when you give a gift, and you got to get that in before the end of the year.
Right.
So,
in the U.S.
In the United States.
In the U.S., it's a big deal.
It's a big deal, and it motivates people. I remember having people running to the church office on the last day of the year, like with checks, like, make sure you get this in, like this year's giving report, right?
Like record it for today,
exactly,
even if you don't deposit it till tomorrow.
Just record it.
Yeah.
So it is, so first reason, everyone's asking, people are not too busy to hear about the vision and what you've done, what you've achieved in 2018, and to talk about what you're going to be doing in 2019.
Right.
Pastors, you've got to get in your mind, this is the month to ask, because it doesn't matter how busy people are, it doesn't matter how much shopping they're doing, they're going to give. And of course, we know where we want them to give to. We want them to give to your church. Mate, I just think that mindset alone, if we can just help church leaders get through that, I think that's going to be the first big win.
Let's so obviously we're on Facebook Live, so there's a bunch of people watching live, or they'll potentially, we get even more that watch the recording. So whether you're live or you're going to watch the recording here in a little while, Do you do some sort of end of year fundraising campaign? I'd love to just hear from the audience. Like, put it in the comments. Let us know what you do, or maybe if you don't do it or you're considering it. Like, let's get a bit of a discussion on what churches are doing currently that are watching this around end of year. So pop it in the comments, and we'll scan through those during the live show, but even afterwards, we'll scan through them and kind of see what everybody's up to, because it would be really interesting to see what churches. I mean, I've seen churches that really do nothing, like they really don't use end of year in any way, and then I've seen churches that are very, very good at sort of having a campaign and a purpose and talking to, their membership, and even maybe some people that are visiting that sort of live in the community and want to inspire or want to be inspired, right? So there's the whole gamut. So it'd be great to hear from a bunch of you guys out there on Facebook.
So why don't we shock and awe with the chart, Frank, that you pulled together?
Yeah, pictures tell 1,000 words, right? So let's see if we can pull this off. We have one screen to share. Okay. Can you, Dean, you just got to confirm that you can see it for me.
I can. So if I can, everyone can.
Okay. Beautiful. So this chart, and you don't have to really get into the weeds, but if you just look at this chart, this is giving to faith-based organizations over the year of 2017. So it's a full year of 2017 from January to December. So you can just see as a percentage of the total, and the estimate for 2017 was somewhere in the neighborhood of $122 billion was given to faith-based organizations in 17, right? So big number, 122 billion is a big number. It could be more, but
it's going up.
And it goes up. I think overall giving in 17 grew by 4% or so, and so giving to faith-based charities definitely grew as part of that. But you can see giving, like, it's pretty flat from January to November, right? It's pretty flat, but then you see in December, even to faith-based groups, which includes churches and ministries and other sorts of faith-based entities, but it's largely driven by churches, local churches all over the U.S. It spikes massively in December. So you can see that December giving is 18.5% of total giving to churches.
It's ridiculous.
It's ridiculous. And, to your point, Dean, people are giving in that month because it's the end of year, and whether they planned it or didn't plan it, right? Like that month is tax season. They're thinking about it. And I think
people get bonuses.
People get end of year bonuses. Maybe you're coming into a pay raise, maybe you have a job where during the year you're like contract work, or there's other things going on. So it's hard for you to consistently give a certain amount during the year, but by the end of the year, you kind of know where you stand, and you're kind of like, okay, now I know where I'm at.
Business owners, like when you run a business, often you're managing your cash flow, paying your employees, you're drawing a salary, but you're getting into that fourth quarter as a business, and you're starting to gear up. Wow, we had a good year, right?
Absolutely.
It's that I had so many contractors in my church, and plumbers and builders and concrete guys, and they give generously through the year, but really it was December for them where they could look back at the year at their business and see what they actually made as a profit, and then boom, that's when they were making big contributions.
And whether it was like personal or they're giving even out of their business, right? So they're making a contribution from the business. That's a great point, right? So
absolutely.
So I guess the main thing is churches should be thinking about it and actually talking to your members about giving in December, because sometimes if you don't say anything, they may not even think about it. It might not be on their minds, but if you mention it to them.
Okay. You just hit on something awesome.
Let's go there. Here, I'm going to stop sharing.
Yeah. So like talking about it, and this comes back to, part of a lot of our core kind of conversations around generosity and talking about money in church. If you are not bold, it means you're not convinced. If pastor, leader, if you're not convinced that your mission matters, that your church's reach into the community matters, that your ministry both to your congregation and beyond. If you're not convinced that matters, you are gonna get up on stage and flub around like, oh yeah, maybe, and we've got this and we did that and it was good, and like you got to come bold and strong, and you can only do that if you totally 100% believe in what you're doing.
Right.
And so this is the moment to put some really kind of meat on that bone. It's like, yes, I do believe what we're doing. Right. We've had a phenomenal year, and you can go, hey, we did this, we did that, we did this, and kind of put a light on some of the things you achieved as a church. And then, hey, but guess what, church? We are just God speaking to us, and we've got so much more vision. This is what we're going to do into next year. And you should be thinking about making a large contribution because we're passionate about what God's called us to do. Yeah. That posture is critical from the pulpit.
Yeah. It's kind of like the difference, when you're around confident people.
Yep.
Right. You pick up on that somehow, some way.
100%.
You pick up on that vibe, right? So the pastors and the church as a whole, right, being confident around giving, right, and being confident that that money is going to be used in a great way to make a big impact in your local community, right? So
100%.
Yeah, I think it all starts there for sure. Is like sort of having a conviction based on the Bible and being able to get on stage with confidence and talk about it.
Right. And then kind of go bold. So, there's, and I noticed like there's a couple of things that people have put in, and Kirsten's helping us with some of that. Some people they're telling that the Christmas service offering, which I'll talk about in a second, is going to a local cancer patient outreach. Hey, listen, some churches and don't even take an offering on the Christmas service. And it drives me nuts because it's like, oh, I've got all these visitors and I don't want them to be about money. I want it to be about Jesus. Hey, listen, that if you frame it right, you don't have to offend anyone ever when you take an offering. You never have to offend anyone, and you never need to be afraid of offending people, visitors or otherwise, if you do it right. So in the sense that like, oh, hey, church, visitors, welcome. We're going to take an offering up tonight, and guess what? There's a local cancer research down the road, and 100% of what you give today, this is no pressure, out of the goodness of your heart. If you feel led to do this, I mean, you can frame that to sound so awesome and raise a ton of money for an awesome cause. But it's like the thought of, oh, I don't want to offend visitors is an absolute red herring.
Yeah.
You will offend them if you don't take the offering correctly. So certainly how we talk about it.
Yeah. Like,
but you can frame it in such a way that's awesome.
Yeah, and like stuff like this, right? We're going to give 100% of this to patients at a local hospital, or even if it was not 100% is amazing, right? But maybe it's some percentage, or it's some even cause that your church is tied to throughout the year, right? It's not just an end of year thing. Like there's all kinds of ways you could do it.
Exactly.
And in fact, generous people, like you're helping cancer patients.
I mean,
whether you're a visitor or not, right? Like your family comes and you've got aunts and uncles or whatever it is, like whether you're a visitor or not, like that speaks to your heart, right? And making an impact. And, some people visiting are going to want to do that. They might already be doing it in other places, and now they can participate through the church. So I think you're right.
I mean, here's a challenge, right? If you're doing end of year Christmas services, which everyone does, and you don't take an offering for whatever reason, how about you feel the challenge today to do an offering and find a cause? Okay, it doesn't have to be for your church's budget. Doesn't have to go back into the church account.
It could be your church's food pantry.
Or, I was going to say,
there's things that could be
outside
really
of normal ministry.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Or if you don't have something like that, go and find a local ministry that's out in your community. I guarantee you there'll be 10 of them within 2 miles of your church building, and go and find a local ministry that's doing great stuff with, the poor and people in need, and go and take up an offering in your Christmas service and announce it. Say, hey, this is what we're doing. This is how you do it. Of course, if you're smart with digital, you're going to have it up on the screen. If you're using our text giving, text the word give, open the app, like make it easy to do, because mobile equals increase every time. Yeah. But why don't you take the challenge this year in your Christmas service to go and take up an offering for something outside, the life of the church, and do some blessing in the community,
Yeah.
right?
And what a
that
great way to partner
that
with
would
your
be huge.
community. Like,
I mean,
churches,
mhm.
the ones that are like thinking about it, right? They're connected with their community in other ways, and they're
Yep.
partnering with other businesses or organizations or nonprofits
Yep.
to sort of increase their impact, right? So what a great way, if you're not already doing something like that, to connect in your community and build a bigger sort of army of people out there doing good.
So someone's asking, is it okay to take, a big offering up and focus on the church's budget? And I say, absolutely, it's fine. To present what the church has done throughout the year. Some churches work, in that they kind of put in the public budget in the bulletin or on the app, what their budget is for the year and whether it's met yet or whatever. So, some churches do that, some don't. But I actually think and it goes back, if you believe it and you've got a strong conviction about what God's called you to do in that church, you'll have no problem raising money for that church to do what it's called to do.
Yeah. Well, what if it was, sorry, go ahead.
But and like it's an awesome opportunity to challenge people around the area of the tithe, and the area of offerings, so the church can fulfill its mission. Like I said, they're going to be asked by like the Salvation Army, the Red Cross, every charity on the planet. I live in Los Angeles. There's a nonprofit on every street corner. They are going to be after people's money.
Mm-hmm.
And my kind of personal conviction and all that is I love giving to disaster relief. We had the fires here in California, gave to that. I love doing all that. But as a Christian and someone who has a real sense of, the mission of the church and what I believe the church can do on the earth, I've always focused my generosity to the church first. That's just what I do. And I think on the whole, that's what Christians do. And in that, I think as a Christian, I want to make sure my local church is funded and doing what God's called it to do. Yeah. So I think making that appeal to the congregation, saying, hey, listen, if you want to make contributions to the Red Cross or disaster relief or anything else, go right ahead. But why don't you put your church first, make sure the church is funded, so then we can go and do all that other good stuff out there in the community as well.
Yeah. And certainly you could, one of the points we're going to get to is sort of like, what's the why, right? So if you're going to do something at end of year, what's the why? Yep. So if it's for your local church, and it's for your budget, I mean, what if the why was, hey, we want to grow our kids ministry program, and we need to increase the budget by X in order to
absolutely
build out a new room or add new staff or XYZ, like what, if it was kids ministry or if it was the AV and the sort of worship experience, like if you had something where you're like, hey, church, we really want to grow in this spot.
I love that.
Need X to do it, right? So that to me is, again, with 3 young kids, right? If you're up on stage and you're talking about growing kids ministry and here's some plans we have, but we need to grow the budget in order to do that, that's going to speak to me as a parent, right? And there's all kinds of ministries being served, right? So you may not hit everybody, but you're going to hit a part of the church by going ministry specific or having plans like that, right? So to me, that's gold.
Maybe you've got a mission, maybe you got missions kicking in, and you're sending a group to wherever, raising money. And a lot of times visitors love giving to stuff like that. Visitors who are coming in from out of town, they're not at their local church. I always used to tell, visitors, if they're visiting, make sure they tithe back to their local church, but they were welcome to give offerings while they're with us visiting. And sometimes if you're a believer traveling to another church for the holiday, and there's a specific mission that you're involved in, a lot of times people will want to get involved in that. And so, absolutely. You can, I think that the thing is the idea is that you don't shrink back and shy away from talking about money and giving and generosity in December. For the obvious reasons, there's a spike, but it's so easy to tell the story. It's so easy to talk about what the church has done and what it's doing that will get people inspired to give.
Yeah. So I think, we've got a couple points, right? So one of them is starting with the why. I think we kind of hit on that. So, if you're going to do something big during the, like Thanksgiving through Christmas, kind of end of year, have a why, have a reason why you're raising these funds and why you're going after it. And that could be so many things. It could be partnering with a charity. It could be
We gave you like 10 examples.
Yeah, there's so many out there. So have a why. And then our point number 2 after have a why is plan a strategy, right?
The plan. Okay, so
have an actual
this is
plan,
where the wheels fall off, right? If you don't do this right. So everyone could get excited for the why. We can be inspired what we want to do. But then if you don't have a plan, if it's like, oh, I'll just get up there and I'll take a quick offering, and it's like, no, that's not what you're going to do.
Right.
That is not the tithely way. Our way is to have a plan, and that includes things like identifying current donors, which if you use our platform, you've got every single donor in your church, and you're going to be able to actually devise email campaign. You can start reaching them via social media. You can start to present the vision of giving in December in a very, very powerful way. And again, I know guys who are genius at this, and they send an email at the beginning of December. Hey, church, thanks for a great year. Yep. Here's the things we're focused on giving this month. Get ready. It's going to be awesome. Christmas service is here. And then a week out, they send another reminder email. Hey guys, get ready. That's going on social. They're kind of just, they're using the app, maybe our app, using push notifications. And it's even right up until even in the last couple of days of the year. So you've gone through Christmas, and then you're actually, hey, December's over. 2018 is about to be done. Don't forget. And then having the giving button, click it right there. Yeah. Those are the kind of things that are really actually going to make a massive, massive difference if you do some planning like that.
I mean, I think when you have a why, and I'll stick with the kids ministry thing because it's easy for me to think about. If you have a why, and for your church, we want to grow our kids ministry and get better at serving families and their kids in this stage of life.
Right.
And you present that to the church early December or even late November, and you start talking about that and kind of so part of your strategy is okay, I picked a why. Now how am I going to communicate it? Right. You do it from stage. Maybe there's some kind of compelling story that you're telling about the impact your kids ministry has already had and how we want to grow that. Right. So you have this strategy, communication strategy. And I think to your point, you got to start early and you got to kind of keep it on all month.
That's right.
Not every day.
No.
But the funny thing is December is 18.5% of total giving to faith-based organizations. Of that 18.5%, the last week and even the last day is a massive portion. I don't have the percentage off the top of my head, but
it's huge though.
Literally the last week and then the very last day. So the very last day, sending the one last email.
Absolutely.
Or maybe even doing something crazy like organizing a dinner for all the families in your church with young kids in kids ministry, and you do this great big dinner and you kind of celebrate where you've kind of gotten to and also make the one last appeal, right? Having a strategy and a focus is a big deal.
And making sure in all email and social media, kind of communications, you got that giving button. So Frank, I mean, just maybe the 1 minute best practice on grabbing that giving button and putting it in those communications. What would you tell our guys?
Yeah, I mean, look, most people are probably using MailChimp or Constant Contact, or maybe they're using their church management platform. Like Tithely Church Management, that you can get for $50 a month. Shameless plug. But you have some sort of email tool. Most people aren't sending personal emails, so you've got this email tool, and most of them are really easy. They even have built-in things like insert button here.
Right.
And it inserts a button and you grab the URL. So when you're logged into your Tithely account, you go to the website giving section. There's a direct URL. You can grab that link and then take it over to your email and add it to that button. So people can just one click and go to the giving form. Or alternatively, maybe you have a page on your website that is for end of year giving or even just your standard giving page. You grab that link and from the email point them to it, right? So I've seen it in the nonprofit world where they make it really hard in the email or in any form of communication to know what you want me to do.
Yeah.
right? So if it's
Don't do
email,
that.
if it's from stage, if it's on social media, if it's in a phone call, if it's in a coffee, a dinner, whatever it is,
Yeah.
make the ask clear.
Right.
We're raising $5,000 for kids ministry
Yep.
and we'd like you to contribute. Click here to donate. Like
Yep.
make
Both.
it that simple.
Right.
And I think related to all of that, like make it simple, but then communicate along the way. So
Yeah.
if you're trying to raise a number, right? We need to increase the budget by this, or we need to raise $10,000 for that. The whole month of December, you should maybe every week report back on what's the impact and sort of
Absolutely.
where do you stand all the way through that last email you send on the 31st. We've raised
Yeah.
$9,000 towards our $10,000 goal. Help us beat the goal.
Right.
Click here to
Pretty
give.
cool, right?
Yeah.
And kind of a good opportunity to create another fund in the drop down. So by going into the back end and creating a fund, and if it's a specific thing like kids ministry 2018 or whatever,
Yep.
drop it in. So when people go in, they drop in the drop down, they choose the fund, they make the contribution, and away you go. And then you can, record all those givers for that particular fund, communicate with them again, all that really, really good kind of donor management stuff that's important. So current donors. And then I think it's an opportunity, honestly, I do, to get new people giving to the church.
Yeah.
And especially for an outside project, like the cancer research thing, that is a phenomenal. Some people, giving's a journey. And giving, if you're a new believer or you weren't raised in church and you just started attending a church, giving it takes a while for that to sink in. It takes a while for the scriptures to really move your heart and we start getting in alignment with God's plan. But when you're asking people to give to cancer research, it's like that hits another part of the brain. But it's almost like it's another section of the brain, but it's all around generosity and being generous.
Yep.
And so having people contribute to something like that is a great way to get people in the groove of making contributions through your church.
Yeah, it's a small step, but it's through the church.
Small step.
And there's a feeling of connection, right? Like when you get, when you, again, as a Christian, you grow sort of over your journey, right? And so at whatever point you start giving, that first step, whatever it is, it's a small step and it's a faithful step, right? To start giving. Like I'm going to take some of my hard-earned money, which most people are working hard for that because they want to do something with it, right? And so saying I'm going to take something and I'm going to be generous and give, like that's a big step. And then you grow from there, and over a year, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, like God's plan is that we become more generous, right? And our hearts get bigger, and but you also get more connected with your church. Like,
absolutely.
You start to feel the longer you're around and the more that you're volunteering and giving financially, the more connected you are to the heartbeat of that church.
Where your money is, right? It's the money and the heart are connected, and so having people contribute is only going to glue them in and connect them in to the life and the vision of the church. So, and the other thing too that I think is possible if you do it well is inspire people to get on a recurring giving plan. Mm-hmm. We talk about that constantly as a way to increase giving in a church's budget, because nothing beats a regular contribution going in, week out, month in, month out. And so you could inspire people either for a project or to get involved in supporting just the life and the ministry of the church by 2-click set up recurring giving, right? Using our app.
Look, I'll go back to kids ministry. It's like you're making the appeal and you're like, we're doing this thing in 2018. We want to grow the kids ministry by doing X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
We'd love for you to set up a weekly or monthly automated gift to the kids ministry fund. Mm-hmm. And that's your appeal. And in the nonprofit world, kind of the large, not churches specifically, but nonprofits clued into this recurring giving thing, a while ago, and you'd see even on their websites, instead of just saying like donate now or give here, their main call to action would be set up a recurring gift.
That's right.
So like they'd lead with that ask. Right. And obviously you could give a one-time gift, but they would lead with recurring giving. So, for the bold and the courageous, go in there and say, hey, we want this ministry to grow, or whatever it is. Again, we want this thing to grow.
That's it.
You could really help us by setting up, a recurring gift. to this particular ministry for the whole of 2018 or 2019.
Yeah. So let's kind of review with some best practices and kind of land this awesome episode.
Land the plane.
Land the plane here. So number one, start now, right?
Number one, have a why. Number zero,
have why.
Like zero, like before you even start, like have the why.
Goes without saying, have your why. And make sure you've framed that, you've thought about it, you've agreed with your leadership team, everyone's on board, you're all in unison, there's unity around the why. And then you got to get cracking, right? So this cannot be left till December 15th.
Absolutely. Like
you want to start communicating.
If you don't have a why today, you should have a why by Sunday.
Absolutely. Get your why by Sunday and start telling people, right? And so that means you got to cast a vision. Okay, so you got your why, and then you got to paint the picture. And as great communicators, ministers, we're great at creating pictures with words. That's what you got to do. You can put graphics up on the screen if you like. You can put pictures of the cancer center. You can put pictures of the kids' church. Great, all good. But you've really got to put those words out there and create that visual for people to really get a hold of it, so they can see. Go
ahead. Well, I was just going to tie into that, the heart side of it, right? Like you want to have the story that connects with people's hearts for whatever it is you're doing. And so if it's the cancer center, if it's kids ministry, wherever it is, if it's kids ministry, you're going to talk about the impact that your church, and maybe you get a couple up there that's had a kid go all the way through high school ministry at your church, and they're, thriving in life, and you have that couple, that family tell the story, right? And so now you're connecting with people's hearts as part of your vision, because I'm going to see that as a dad with younger kids coming up through the ministry. Right. I'm going to be inspired by that and go, that's what I want for my kids, right?
Sharing stories, right? We talk about it in our best practices around giving. Sharing stories is key. And that's absolutely, especially in something like the kids' church thing. That's seeing a great 18-year-old guy or girl graduating high school, been in the life of the church, they're serving in the church, whatever. That's the vision that every parent wants their kid to have. So, making sure the stories and the testimonies, making multiple appeals. Okay, so you've got your why, you're casting your vision, you're telling great stories, but you're not going to do this once. Okay, there's going to be email and social media communication about the why and the vision, and you're going to do this right through December, not ad nauseum, but here's what I do.
Maybe once a week,
Maybe I think once a week is fine, because
is fair.
I get emails from Amazon every flipping day, right, for something.
Yep.
And I don't. I have a quick look and like flick them, but honestly, your people are going to get hammered, and it's like, we're here. Right. Don't be bashful and stay hidden. Make the communication come via email, social, and the pulpit right through December. Don't just do it once, and then
all the way through the last day.
Last day.
Do not forget. Send the email, post it on social, make the call, whatever it is, on the very last day of the month. And preferably you send it in the morning, right?
Yeah.
Like
first thing.
Kind of late morning, you get it out, because
31st.
Yep, the 31st. You do not want to miss that day.
So the next practical thing is you got to make it easy. And we talked about that a little bit, right? With giving buttons and so on. Maybe tweaking your website giving button. If you're not following tightly best practices on that top right-hand corner, a color that's going to pop out a little bit from the rest of the menu. We always suggest that. But making it simple, and maybe if you're using our custom app, you can create, an end appeal giving kind of extra button in the app. Just making sure, and honestly, this does sound a little bit self-serving, but the more you can push to digital giving, number one, the amount of the offering goes up. We know that, we've proven that. And the consistency that follows from people giving digitally is absolutely hands down way better than any other form.
Yep.
And the fact that most people sitting in your church during the month of December, if they're under 35, have very little cash and don't carry a checkbook, don't know what that is.
I mean, if you're making these appeals, and this is a little bit out of the normal sort of flow of your church, people, less and less people over time are walking into church with a checkbook or cash.
Sure.
And so it just makes logical sense. I mean, I forget what we read this thing yesterday, but some crazy number of Black Friday deals were done on a mobile device.
No, it was $4 billion. It was $4 billion.
I mean, it was just mind-boggling numbers. And even from the charitable giving stats that we pulled, 21% of online giving in 17 came from a mobile device.
Yep.
Right. So the mobile device is growing, and everyone's walking into, your church with a phone.
Yep.
They may not have cash or check, but they're coming in with a phone.
So do this fun experiment. Maybe you don't have to do it in December. Do it, but pocket this one away. Stand up in front of your church and ask everyone to bring out their checkbook and hold it up in their hand.
Yeah.
Do that, and then if you've got 500 people,
can't find it.
There'll be 6. There'll be 6 people. Right? I've done this a million times when I do conferences. And then the next thing you do is say, hey, would you take out your mobile phone and hold that in the air? 99% of people do that.
Yep,
Game over.
absolutely.
You just proved it. Mobile is the way to go. Yep. So make sure your mobile strategy is front and center and making stuff. And that's the easy way for people to do it. Making the easy kind of ramp on for the new givers. Again, mobile's the easy way to go.
Digital's the way.
Easy way to go. And then the end of year statement, Frank, maybe just talk about that real quick. What the opportunity in communicating the thank you, and also setting up for moving forward, right?
Yeah, I mean, the end of year statement is a massive opportunity. And obviously this goes outside of end of year giving. This is now moved into the next year, because you're going to send your end of year tax statements usually sometime in January, potentially early February. But what a great opportunity. Instead of just saying, here's your printed copy and it just has, the basics in there. Thanks for giving. And here's your transaction history. Like, how boring is that, right? What a missed opportunity. Instead, take that as a moment, the senior pastor or the senior leadership or the eldership or whatever it is at your church that, carries a bunch of weight, where they write a personal letter, right? To every member of the church that's been given.
Yep.
In that letter, there's like, here's what we did last year, X number of people got saved. We grew this ministry this way. We made this kind of impact in the local community. We did this in missions. And you tell your story of 2018, right?
Yep.
And you help people understand, like, wow, because, your average member is not going to know about everything, but you do. So go tell everybody about the impact you guys had in 2018. 100%. And right there is also another moment for 2019, for the next year, to say, hey, we know you've given generously. And if, let's say, it's a segment of people that aren't super consistent, you can go to them and say, we'd love for you to set up automated recurring giving this year, right? So you could do some things in your communication. So it's a big time opportunity to tell the story, cast the vision for the new year, and motivate people to give right there.
And so the last thing we want to tell people before we sign off today is the ebook, the guide that we did with Generis, our friends over at Generis.
Yeah.
And I'm sure as I'm speaking, Jesse or one of the Tidely elves is going to put a link in there.
Check the comments. They're down there.
Awesome. Check the comments, because you can go get. So our buddies at Generis, we put together this book with them. It's a beautiful PDF book. And it basically goes through in depth a lot of what Frank and I just talked about. So you can go get it, read it.
Examples,
right, write emails, like the whole 9 yards. It's really awesome. You hand it to some of your staff, get everyone on board with that. And that's free. You can go and grab it.
And it should be in the comments. I'm sure Jesse's already posted it there. If you guys would give it a like, and even share that out, share it out on social media. We'd love to get in the hands of as many churches as we could, because it's a great guide. And I think it just walks people through this. You can go back to it and read it instead of rewatching the episode.
Love it, man. Hey, what a great show.
It's good times.
Yeah,
man. Next week, I don't know what we've got, but we've got something coming.
It's going to be incredible.
It's going to be incredible. I'm sure we'll both be home getting ready for the holidays. But, man, it's good to have everyone on the show. We're grateful for you guys, and I hope you have a fantastic December.
Appreciate it, Tidely fam. We'll see you next time. God bless.
See you guys.